Okay, y'all, this is a budget town hall type meeting, so it's very formal. We will go ahead and do the pledges and so forth, but then it's open. Megan will have a presentation to kind of guide us through. If you have any comments or anything, anybody jump in. Okay. All right, ready? Go. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which stands one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. You all.
See what you did, you got off.
Yeah, they got started. It's maybe Sean.
Those are very important ones.
They come in. We were contemplating whether we should follow you and run off too.
You should. Frederick Wiley has the license.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good, very good.
Good deal. Good deal. Yes, you had to take that. Very good. Are we ready? We're ready. We already did the pledges and everything.
Okay, so this budget workshop in particular is going to cover some of our annual policies and then our employees. There are multiple handouts available for the public that are up there. Council, you're provided electronic copies of the policy. And then you have paper copies there as well. So the first policy is the budget policy, originally approved in 2018. It was reapproved in June of 2022. This provides the guidance and preparation and the requirements needed for the city budget. This is the one that has the green cover sheet. I do not anticipate any changes unless council would like to make them. This outlines everything to be provided in the budget, is kind of an explanation, expectations. This is what we're currently following. I can go through the three policies and we can talk about each one, or we can stop and then talk about each one separately, so that I can take notes if we need to make some updates. I would like to present these back to council for the next meeting for approval, whatever that, whatever's more efficient. And going through each one at a time. So, okay. We're gonna take a moment, discuss the budget policy in general. Does council have any questions, concerns, comments?
I don't know yet. I'll have to-
Okay, well, that's easy. The second one is our financial policy. So this was actually updated in 2022. And I listed out the additional information that was put in from the original one that had been adopted in 2018. In reviewing other cities and looking at the changes with legislation, I wanted to make sure we kind of covered a bigger aspect of our financial policies. So one of the things that was added is on the second page where it has uncollectible debts. This allows the city to write off debts that we've actively tried to recover. This pertains mostly to our utility billing. We currently have not had the ability to sit down and go through that receivable list. These go back to the 90s. There's accounts that just write off. There's no way we can really collect them anymore at this point because there are time limitations. We also went into a further explanation in our ordinances where we added the debt write-off as well in our ordinances that specifically said that after certain levels, we would get our city attorney involved, council would have to. So we can't just go in and write off the debt. This actually was just to add to this ordinance specific or this policy. And then we furthered it up with our ordinance. The one-time unpredictable revenue source was also added. This is that one time we just get a bunch of money, you know, someone wins the lottery, Judy, and hands it all over to the city.
I'm not gonna tell y'all yet.
This is just that one-time unpredictable revenue source, should not be used for outgoing or ongoing expenses. So we shouldn't use it for our daily operating, it should be basically allocated. That's what we have been doing, this just, you know, puts it in work. The other item that had been updated was on page 3. Over the time, the city has gone up and down with their purchasing limits. We tried to reel it in to make it a little bit stricter, fully just to control where the money is going. Over time, we started to relax the expenditures. Our departments have all adhered to, you know, make sure you get your bill, make sure you get your supporting documentation, make sure you get your signatures. I know Jennifer and Daryl and Andrew who are here and will get that on a regular basis. Yes, I'm sure you get good. So this changed all those levels, requiring who can authorize what. So that was an important thing to put in place. This also updated to match our grant policy. So it reflected in both places. The other item that was changed was at the end of page 3, top of page 4, is the emergency purchases. This one really had to be cleaned up a little bit last year. We were getting lots of purchases all over the city that just had emergency on it. The state of Texas really does allocate what you can consider an emergency. They're very specific. And yes, I know on Sunday you think it's important to go to True Value and get something, but unless it falls within these categories, it doesn't constitute an emergency. This one was to pay back the utility department because everything had become an emergency. They were kind of avoiding the fuel process. And so we cleaned it up a little bit to say, hey, yes, you have emergencies, but we need to make sure they fit these categories. So that helped me. The other item that was updated is on page 5. We're no longer with a self-insured house fund. We are actually fully funded. We don't have to allocate a portion of what we charge ourselves to cover funds. We just cut a one-time check to the Shield, so we wanted to clean that up. The other item that was updated was the capital assets. We added improvements. So this one kind of ties nicely into where we've gone and what we're doing. As far as requiring an annual review of capital equipment and infrastructure, setting priorities for its replacement and renovation based on needs, funding alternatives, and availability of. So as we've gotten into the strategic plan, is a company needs it. And then the one section that was added, section G, which is probably the longest of the whole entire policy. Starting on page 8, that whole entire section was added last year. This goes through all the debt options. This was put into place because I really didn't want anyone to think the city could just go out for debt. We actually can't just go out for debt. There are procedures and policies that should be followed. So this definitely needs to be put in as we even contemplate that process that regulates us. So there were some specifics put into what the different types of debt can be used for. I know that we looked at the requirements for the debt service tax rate. The state regulates how much actual INS we charge. So we can't have an INS rate that's $3. So we can't see what the state requires, so we address that. That currently hasn't changed. We also included all of the legislative codes that, hey, this is why we have to follow it. This one will be reviewed as we go through the second session of legislation as well. I know that they have talked about property. And I don't think this policy currently conflicts with anything because we left it very broad. We're trying to make it any easier or harder on ourselves. It also addressed all the different types of debt we go out for. Certificates of obligation, general obligation bonds, tax revenue bonds, and of course our debt structure. We shouldn't go out for debt not to exceed 25 years for general obligation and 30 for revenue. And when we do go out for debt, we don't go out for debt. our long-term investments. This still doesn't apply. This is also the one that I know Councilor Rodriguez, you have some questions like, well, how do you know and what do we do? So this really will help any discussion. It sets in some additional regulations for us. Any questions on that?
For that long, Megan.
We put it in our. Hold on, Karen doesn't. Karen does have a, oh, under row. Is it okay if Karen makes her comment?
Oh, yeah, of course.
You said that they were like for 30 years, maybe, so is it a low interest?
So yes, so currently our current debt is between 3% and 4%.
Oh, okay.
We have some that have zero interest. So it really varies. Right now, we're in that 3%, and that's what we perceive. And then Darren and then Rick.
What our current INS is and then what max is.
So the max is 150 from the state. And our current is actually really, really low and useful. 0.003. The max is 150. So 0.039526.
Do it one more time.
0.039526. So if you look at the 150 to 4 cents, there's a huge span. I do want to point out on the tax rate, just so that the public understands, it's divided into two portions, M&O, which is our operating, and INS. INS is only set at what we need to collect for the year. So it would fluctuate year to year as our payments go up and down. So just so everyone has an understanding, that rate is very specific, it can only be used for our debt. Couldn't collect more and then move it into the operating, that's not allowed.
How does the next function?
We're actually,
Although this says. there's
Oh.
no next function.
goes down.
So basically, now you're telling.
Yeah, so, and just to clarify what Rick's saying, he's 100% correct with, we don't collect, so everything we budget for, and when we look at our debt, we're looking at 100% collection. That means everyone's gonna pay every part of their taxes. We know that that doesn't happen. So for the past several years, we've collected between 96 and 98%, which is really good. And we've been fortunate though, that we've also had some back tax collections that have assisted us as well. But for the fiscal year collections, we've never collected 100%. I don't think any entity. So, I mean, that's a good. What did you say our collection rate is? 96 to 98, but the policy said that we should collect at least 90. Any other questions? I get you all here. So the last one is our investment policy. We are required by the state law to have an investment policy that outlines everything the city can and cannot do, not only at the state level, but we feel comfortable with at the city level. So our original investment plan was formally presented in 2013. The city had not had a formal plan up until then. So in 13, we presented it, and every year it basically gets renewed. In 2020, the prior city manager and myself sat down and said, you know what? Let's go and clean it up a little bit, restructure it, look at what we truly want and compare to other cities. Bigger cities have booked because they invest in everything legally allowed. We don't invest really in anything. What we're currently doing is we're moving our funds, which is allowed under our policy and by the state, to put money in what we call pools, investment pools. So when I do the quarterly report, you see all those line items. They're Texas Plats, which is a government entity that invests, and then Techstar. So both of them are strong government pools that we utilize. They tend to have higher interest rates than banks. We are allowed to invest in items like commercial paper, certain stocks, certain callable bonds, stuff like that. We don't have a mechanism in place, especially right now. I do see the city moving that direction to get a bigger return of investment. As we're starting to build these pools. The nice thing about the pools is I can literally go online or pick up the phone and say, hey, I need to transfer $20,000, $5,000 to cover this, and it's immediate. I'm not having to go through this huge process. Now, I will never move money without the council knowing, and any director of finance that comes in will not move money without it. Just because we want everyone to know, hey, move your money.
Are there penalties if we do that?
No. So there's not a single penalty. It's an in and out. The longer it sits there, of course, the bigger it gets, the more interest. The beautiful side of this is the easily ready availability.
Kind of like a money market.
Yes. So CDs would be the first step, especially if we did like a 90-day, 6 months, or 1 year, and we staggered them. So we're collecting all of this additional interest, and then we're staggering them so we're not never without. So that we're not having, oh my God, it's in the CD, and if we break it, we're gonna be penalized. And we lose the interest that we should have collected on it, that type.
You know what kind of rates we're getting?
So on the last month it was 4%. So yes, so they are very comparable to each other, and so it does. So the businesses are located in other ones in Colorado, one's
4% is pretty good comparable to CD.
And of course, the way the CDs are structured, the longer you get a little bit more. Just depends on how long you want to time. To fully understand how we invest, it's going back and pulling the spreadsheets that were done when we updated this in 2020 to reflect our cash. What money can we ideally put aside because we don't need. So that was one reason why we.
You know how much money we received or up to this fiscal year up to now as far as interest.
Was it?
No question. See all that.
Yeah.
That's true. We can do it again. See.
It's everything right. It is definitely doubled and tripled from like 90.
Sorry.
100 years
Yeah,
ago.
yeah.
More me, I know.
You have a question?
Yeah, I'm just curious if you did start going to the CDs and monitoring your own investments, you have enough manpower.
No. Until you find me that director. She's helping you guys. She's helping you.
I got 2 rejections so far. Where are you? Where?
And is there a Walmart?
So
Yeah.
there is an alternative if the city truly wanted to take a direction with investing. and start rolling over these large reserves, types of investments, we can hire someone to do it, and that's part of this policy.
Great.
So we wouldn't have to do it with it. Good. No more questions? So the big part of this discussion is employees, and I've asked several of the directors to be here and supervisors, because I wanted it to come from more than this speech. You've heard me say it for some time now. So I felt it important to go through kind of everything that we've talked about, including some of the comments you guys have made in regards to the questionnaires. So we do provide questionnaires for our council members to kind of ask them what are your priorities, what direction you want to take the city, the needs and wants. One of the questions in particular dealt with the employee pay rate. So I would like to kind of go through each of these discussion topics at the end, because I do have some additional material in the slideshow. But I really would like us to, at the end of this meeting, have some type of conclusion so that I can go back and work numbers. I can present 100 different possibilities of the way the city can go, and I would never. So I really want to know specifically the top 2 directions we want to go, so that when I put the budget fully together, you have those options, numbers out there. This is how it would affect. So one of the questions, of course, employees is changing the starting pay rate from $13.50 to $15. This one in particular is important as we discuss it because we talked about market value, we do have some information on it. But also understanding if we make that pay change, that we have to address this question. When the city changed their pay structure in 2018, they didn't take into consideration the compression. And I still have sore employees who are upset that they started off at 10 and the person coming in started off at 13. They worked to that 13.50 and they were never compensated. Thank you. So I don't want to create that same environment. I want to make sure that if we make those changes, that we do address it across the board. And this isn't just at the hourly as well. We have to ensure that our supervisors are being paid at a level that makes them a supervisor. We have employees, yes, they have been here for 10, 15, 20, 30, 40 years that aren't supervisors, but it's not probably the best, especially from a cultural perspective, to bring in a supervisor. We don't pay them at 9,000. That is almost the same as comparable. Supervisors should be at a higher level to be compensated because they're the supervisors. They're the ones you hired as the expert for this department.
The other rises right now, do you anticipate?
All of them. So the way I've been working it, I've learned a lot about this. It's really having to categorize all the different levels of employees. And what are their salary starts spending and then what's the need. And then from there, come up with a formula that allows you to do the percentage. So it wouldn't be the same for everyone. Typically, those who are higher up have a lower percentage increase because they're farther away from. So it's been figuring out that median. But we've never developed a program with our job descriptions and positions that actually put them in categories besides departmental. So I know it's been a back and forth from city manager to city manager, council to council. It's been all over the place. But it's really understanding, does a police officer 1 fit the same level as a utility worker? And so you're trying to group these categories of employees. So when I look at the salaries of our current employees and I look at the job descriptions, it's taking those positions and say, okay, they should fit in here, and maybe the police officer 1 is in the second. So maybe they're considered the same level as the workers too. And then you can do the start to ending and know your. It's fun.
That's fun.
It's time consuming, and there's software that will do it for you. I didn't buy it.
No, because Megan wants to do it. I'll go on.
Almost. It's been really hard to truly classify it.
That's because that clearly the work starting pay. Good question. need for this. Our dollar.
Well, and then I thought the easiest way is if we're going from $13.50 to 15, that's $1.50, just give everyone $1.50. Doesn't quite work that way.
Now, I had more faith in you than that. No, that's how I would.
I can cheat. We, or I should be Marcy's been helping me, and she is online. We did pull some market value for her in the next slide. Some cities and counties have already done that structure, and like recently, like Richard County did this year. And looking at how they classify their groups, it's actually had me go back and kind of change. I figured if I can comparably use other counties, it's so I am on the last of round, the spreadsheet. Probably needs to be ironed out. If we don't go that direction, historically, the city has always done a cost of. And so that would be a percentage across the board. This wouldn't be one employee gets 3%, one employee gets 4%. This would be a straight across the board for everyone. Last year we did 3%. Several of you did recommend doing the 3%. The one thing I did change from last year, and it did upset a few people, and council, I do thank you for passing it, is we added a merit raise for 2%. But what I told all directors and during the budget discussion was, this was 2% per employee. This wasn't, I'm gonna give you 3%, I'm gonna give you 1%, or I'm gonna give you 4%, I'm gonna give you 0%. Because you're doing a much better job, but I'm not gonna encourage you. So I had it where it was 2% per employee, and you couldn't give it to someone else. Now, the employee has to earn that 2%, which is where we put in a growth plan. And the growth plan was a very simple, year one, let's start getting our directors on board, that our employees understand we do care. And as they're going through the year, and I've already sent out the halfway mark with Dave, where your employees at with their growth plans and that training. And that's what everyone said. Well, I want them trained. Well, you want them trained, but you have to set them up with training. Some employees will take it by the horns and run with it, and they'll get themselves the training if they want that 2%. This is where I wanted to start making the changes with the city. One, put in the growth plan, start off with a merit raise, and then develop an actual incentive pay scale program. Where when they get hired, they know exactly what they're getting hired for based on education, based on certifications, experience. And then two, if I get a certain certificate, I'm moving up. Or if I get specific things, I'm moving up. Or if I'm gonna get a raise because I'm just an awesome employee, I know exactly what that raise is this week. And then as we budget for the intentional purposes of every employee may not always happen. And that's okay. But we definitely don't want to encourage our employees to do better and then come back and say, well,
Thanks.
yeah, we'll have to.
But no longevity. They don't do longevity.
Yes, they do. That would fall under our bid.
Okay.
So what I hear is two poles. One is restructure, in line with market, and step based upon the skills that people have had over time. That's one of them. The other is 3% across the board, or whatever. I would just tell you, I'm not restructuring stuff. 3% makes no sense. That's not.
I really appreciate that comment. Rick. That's really the direction.
Well, I would have said it, but I didn't really use it. Just because I just say this from my experience working. I was a worker. We give 3%. What the hell? I wasn't impressed.
Well, remember
I
the year,
one time, don't give me this. You're gonna mess up a man that has FAFSA, and if I made so much money, I didn't qualify for that. Stop. Leave me alone for one more year when they get around to school. Then you get 6%.
well, then there was the year that the county gave us a 3%, but it was the year that
But they took back the.
Social Security, they reducted the.
Yeah,
5%.
yeah.
So basically, came
My
out to
check
like
was
a
lower.
2%.
Yeah, I know.
It's fun, but I love that.
We are in a labor driven.
Absolutely.
Since we're gonna be in this for probably another 2 years. It's gonna be painful from our standpoint. It's gonna be painful from how many employees can we afford. We've gone through this process so many times. They employees the market, hire the employees you need. You have to work. Someone say, hey, you gotta go somewhere else who can afford all those employees. It's just a process. It's fine. My view was, if I was you, I'd head down the path, honestly, you need to be ready for it, and have that discussion.
Well, and that's exciting, because I really.
Well, then your retention plan going.
Right.
Well, it's part of the retention plan, it's part of that compensation
Not gonna do
package.
it.
So the IAC just hired a new director of finance. And that individual went in doing exactly what they would start off with. It wasn't a salary range based on mine or your recommendation. It was, I have 2 years of experience, I have a master's degree, and I knew exactly this is what they were gonna come in. So, and this is kind of where I want to go, because we've had those issues where we've hired an employee as level 1. But I have this degree, or I have this, and we don't compensate.
We've had these discussions.
Yes.
And it's just been your plan ever since I got.
Well, I've been working on it in the background the whole
I know
time.
you have. So now let's do it.
Talk about school, you get paid for stipends. What do you think, let's say, e-licenses, things like that?
Yes, and that's where the incentive program needs to change. This is again been a back and forth from, and it's always gonna change, which I feel like we put a real structure to it and they make it easier. Certain departments have what we call incentive pay or certification pay. Other departments don't, but they still are required to have certain licenses. I know Jennifer Stewart is sitting in the crowd and she hates me because she had them and then they got taken away in the last review of the employee handbook. So she comes in excited, she's gonna get someone, I'm like, that's not in our policy. It's not a certification she can pay. So it's going back and structuring all that back out. We also wanted from a payroll perspective to change it, because what we're calling some of the certifications specifically for the police department are.
They fall into a hole.
There is a type of certification pay, but they don't get it. They get it on top of their salary, it's not part of their salary,
Certificate differential.
differential. So they get the, starting off
If you're
at
a master
1850,
police officer, you get, yeah.
they get 24 cents per hour up to 80 hours of payroll. So if they take off a day unpaid, payroll has to reduce it to 72. Or if they work overtime, it doesn't apply to overtime. So from a payroll perspective, we've increased our chances of making mistakes. It's also not beneficial to the officer, because like, if I work all this overtime, why am I not paid? So, yeah, they don't. But then on the water side, we literally give the employees $1 an hour raise. It's part of their base pay. It's automatic, so it affects their base and then it affects their overtime. But we don't do the same with PD. And then we don't do the same with ACO. Gas department has no certification pay. You have certified welders on gas lines who get no extra.
We're all ready.
I want the public to be all over here.
Yeah, ready to do it, you know, so don't sleep. We can't stop that and do it. This makes us not,
I'm just glad.
people don't want to apply here because they're not sure what's gonna happen. Let's make them-
That's the next, one of the things that we're talking about was after that officer works the 80 hours, he doesn't lose his master's certification. We're using him extra because
Because
of it.
that's right.
So he needs to be also.
So restructure into an hourly rate, it would be beneficial. The next section, is benefits.
So back that, so you're not sleeping and you don't sleep anymore.
It doesn't matter.
When do you think you'll be far enough along to be able to share with council what that means? Because it's gonna hit us on the expense side, which we don't understand.
So I gave myself a July 30th.
Okay,
And there's gonna be sections that really are gonna affect it that should have been done first, like Josh.
okay, July 31st, got it. Okay. So, now. Thank you.
You know, maybe when I came to work in the city in 2013, I made $11. Got some merit raises and things, we got up near 12. I was pleased. Near 12. I
I'm
was-
sorry. I
Well,
apologize.
when I moved here, I was making 30K. I knew I wouldn't make that here.
Right.
But this last go around with the contract, I was working 13.50, and for me, that's a comfortable salary, but I'm just one person. So and I think it's a damn good thing, so. Having been there.
So the next one is benefits. And we've kind of been going back and forth with this, and I mentioned, how Gio has gotten a discount for the gym. And honestly, just listening to employees, and in kind of like their wants and needs. And I know that we can't appease all of them. It's just not possible. But I do want to look at benefits. We may not be able to put these in place until October, November. Because a lot of the benefits in discussion are like vacation time, sick leave time, additional mental health. Or PTO, or however you want to word it. So looking at changing those to provide that little bit of extra. But there's a two side to that. It's also my responsibility to ensure that the directors make sure their employees take that. And it's really hard because we say we're short staffed, but even when we're short staffed, we still have to give the staff a chance to take a break.
Because that's when they're working hard.
And not only that, but we have a large burnout and employees, they can't work 24/7. I don't think that they should have the same expectations as me. So I understand when someone says, hey, I'm taking time off, go right ahead. Well, if you need me, call me. No, you're taking the time off. So adding the extra benefit and looking at the hours from that perspective to help with the work-life balance, life-work balance, but also taking into consideration, adding a few extra. The big push that I've seen with a lot of cities and just talking in general is that mental health. I know there's the stigma with calling it mental health, but I think if we present it that way in a policy with a structure in place, it's so that people, especially in the city and our employees know, it's not a stigma. We want you to do it. We want you to take care of yourself. I took MHMR days all the time, but you need a day. First came out my vacation, but that's a new direction that they're going. Also looking at true benefits of uniforms, cell phones. Another big expense that could come down the pipeline. We don't issue, and this isn't really a benefit, but it's something I just want to put out there right now because we're just signing a new contract is emails. Not all city employees have emails, which means we're using their personal for work.
Why now?
Because we don't have a package with all of them. We issued emails to everyone. We took away half the emails from everyone. And now we're right back at that. Don't use your personal email for work because it becomes an open
program to get y'all in.
Makes sense.
So most of 90% of our employees already have digital phones, so they can put the. But if you wanted to do internet, I definitely think that we should look at in partnering with one of our local companies.
There's an idea. We all use these. How many of us love reading complex things? Yes, exactly. So you want to have access.
We already paid for internet up here.
So at the city location, yes, but there could be a handful of employees who struggle with that.
So well, you don't think that whatever company you have, you can just put it in on ours through that, it'll give us a better rate for
That's why I was just saying we could partner with a local and see what we can
coding
do.
it up.
So I don't see that this fiscal budget, but definitely see something in place that we may have to adjust. Other benefits, so retirement it's a law still. We really can't make any changes with our retirement. It's regulated by the city. At the next meeting, next week, I have a legislative wrap up and I have an appointment. I'm gonna scoot on over to Austin, to talk with the TMRS team, to know about the COLA for retirement and that impact it would have on the city. I'm not able to find any records of when we've ever done a COLA. Yes, so this year, our percentage is 1.96, we have a very low percent. that fluctuates based on how many retirees buy out, stuff like that. Our upcoming is 2.1. Let me double check. I want to. But I want to fully understand.
Not mad.
Yeah, so you put in and we put in on your behalf. So, but you have to retire. Yeah, so not, it's not.
But it's not a 401K.
No.
That was the question I was asking. It's really, you know what it's.
So I tried to go back through everything that I have record wise on retirement and we've not helped our retirees. So they're basically getting the same with whatever little interest for the past forever. The new House bill that passed allows us to do a COLA for retirees, but doesn't go back to their start date. It goes back just 12 months. So it's a huge savings for cities who've never done COLAs. Or where they have reoccurring COLAs that, every so many years they do a COLA increase. And every COLA is.
So that's a cost of living adjustment.
Make sure everybody knows.
And we do have that population of employees who are retiring, but also we have that younger group that if you want to invest in the board, we want them to know that if they retire with us, they're getting something out of it.
Not insured.
We have no interest.
If somebody retires, how is their retirement figured out? I know in education, it's the top 5 years, highest paid years. So does that mean higher paid individuals will have a larger retirement at the end of the rainbow? Yes. Is it based off 3 years, 5 years?
I don't know.
It will probably be good to kind of walk us all through that. Because on one hand, we want to make sure that employees have a good. Tell the others, I've seen organizations, so they make them really rich depending upon what's going on in the city's going.
Yes.
So we're trying to lock that down. Solid employment, it's right. At the same time, make sure we're not committing the city.
Yes, and that's why I'm sidetracked. Awesome.
So that would be good. So
I've never actually sat down with our retirement group. We just done all the paperwork
They were here.
for the retirement. They come every so often to kind of tell you the steps to retire. I want to know the financial side with the side, yearly report that
The
says
county
you have
has
to.
since changed what I did. About 9 later. No, it's the same thing, these counties.
When I mentioned,
Everybody quit at once, we'd all quit at once.
I had mentioned, so the county's retirement, their portion is over 10%. We're just at 2%. So that's huge.
One of the things that I've noticed, looking at my wife's retirement in mine, she's been with the school district for 26 years, and I've been with the city almost 29. And she's probably making, once she decides to retire, she'll be making $1,000 more than I will.
So it's also the contribution rate. Our employees only contribute 5%. At the county, we contribute 7%. Cities have the option
I tried
to
to
go
put
3, 5, and 7.
Everyone let me do. No, the county would not let me.
And at the
Because
city.
for about the last 5 years, I thought, you know what, I've done better.
Yeah.
Because I'll spend what I have. I don't know if you see that this is free, because I'll never open it. I'm not an accountant, I hear ran on the, I'll help you, I don't understand those. But I understand that I retired, I needed to survive. So I thought, well, if I put in more, good, I didn't know. But they're like, I'm sure you'd love to, Judy. Yeah, I would love to. Because then the county would have had to match.
The
that's
city,
the issue.
Yeah,
Oh,
we'll see.
one, so the city, we can't do that. Employees can't come in.
You'll have them at 7.
At 5. This is a set rate council has approved. So you can't, I don't count side. Cities have 3, 5, and 7. So if you were at 7 and you went to 5, you can't go back up. So
Really?
I don't know if the city's ever been at a 7. It's a lot of research, why I want to sit down with someone so I can pull up all the data. Because if that's the case, even though the impact is on the take home, the benefit is the long. I personally would rather have 7% pulled out, because it helps me in the long run. And we have a lower investment, we're invested with our retirement at 5 years, whereas at the county would be. So already, if you're here 5 years, you're invested. You could go to another city, keep yours here, move it into that city, but you're vested, so you would retire. So retirement is a big thing. The insurance side, that one's been a bit more difficult to really understand how it would affect the city, and what we.
One last thing on the retirement. Does the city have a third party agent that offers that full fees or anything else? Is there somebody who's there? Say, hire. That's gonna get it out.
We don't have any different. At the county, I know for sure, or they did, would contribute to a 401. That would have to be an agreement with that vendor, but that's exactly it. That's something we look into to give that employee the other option. Now, we've had, not big, one of the nationwide was like Aflac. But we did have a bank want to come in to help set up accounts people could put money into, but it wasn't for like a 401 IRA. It was more to have like. But we're also only limited to 2 accounts. So when we do our payroll, we can only put money into 2 accounts. So that does make it harder because we do have the financial savvy people who then have to take it from accounts, put it to the account.
That's limited software.
So you're gonna go spend some time. Okay, and when do you think you're gonna come back with an assessment? What some of the options might be?
I'm hoping by the beginning of July. I need to absorb the data when they tell me, if I have any follow-up questions. Because I'm meeting next Wednesday, I won't have the ability.
Well, that's why I'm posing questions. So for end of July. Wages. Sounds like sometime between now and the end of July closing. So we may want to reschedule this discussion as it influences what goes on the budget.
We can, or we can tie it to a regular scheduled meeting and have the budget workshop.
Either way, I don't care.
We're having more workshops, just the
Yeah.
4 big ones to get everyone's input to put the numbers in. But you're not done. We're fighting.
Oh,
Except for
I-
the second week.
So I know that. I'm just trying to figure out my own schedules.
Some of the other benefits that we've talked about, the short-term daycare, we've got the gym part covered. Really just anything in that you would be with benefit. The last one,
Audience member comment. Just curious, and if this has already been discussed at another time, I understand. As you're trying to attract the department heads for the key positions or any department head, you all consider housing stipends because of how expensive housing is here compared to their wages.
we have not.
Okay.
Where would they live? Is almost already.
Well, that's the
short-term rental.
real problem, is where would they live? But I know when I was in corporate America, we did pay housing stipends for people.
Schools are doing it all.
Are they?
They're trying to.
It would be a taxable benefit, but it might be a little sweetener. And I don't know if the cost, if the cost could be handled through the city budget. I just don't.
Your kids see that.
I have talked to some of the apartment complexes and having officers live there, either at, no cost or reduced cost. Basically just to provide a security for them. And some places in other cities do that. And so I've looked at that. We actually used to have one officer that used to live at Alpine Heights, this is probably about 20 years ago, that lived there rent free because it was just another person that could keep an eye on the place.
They're like players.
He's probably busy.
And what makes it harder for your officers is that they're competing with all of the DPS, border patrol. So that.
I have one officer right now that's telling me that she can't make it, and she's looking for another job.
And how much?
What's that?
What level of pay do you think?
She's at almost $20. And Barbara, so did
25% more.
Tony Gonzalez just put in 13% pay raise for Border Patrol, who started at 18 years old, and our officers can't start to. Within 4 years of new Border Patrol agent will be making one of the.
Oh, he says. Yeah, it coming out. 21, is that a state law?
But it just seemed like the key positions, you certainly might need to sweep the deal somehow and make it.
You know, in Fort Stockton, they bought a
Do that.
hotel.
Tell them, you know, the department that your healthcare is the fact. And that's why we need to really work hard. So we're also in that era, nobody thinks they can. We want to go get a job. Oh. But it's supporting the hospital, the schools, and all the programs that are coming down, and it can't support where. I don't want to be.
I guess this is a high level thing, but if you demographically look at age and everything else of your workforce, is there any question of that? Do you need what youth or age or?
We do have an increasing older population based off of the study of the. Yes. And even in the city, this is where we're at. Young, old, poor people here.
You're talking about the city.
The
as far as
city
our
demographics,
demographics,
yes.
Okay.
We
yeah.
have those who have been here, you know, for several years, and we've had here for So the less than 5 years want. The ones who've been here longer want the benefits. The ones in the middle are kind of thinking, okay, I just want to make it.
So right.
But that's a good thing that I can put it together for you guys.
One of the things that I was talking about the other day, when I went to high school here in 1989, we were a class of almost 100. And now these classes are 50, 60.
I was 77.
And so our classes back then were big. It's really weird.
And the one we've already talked about is working towards. So the next slide in your packet on the screen is, this is the market rate. For Marfa, City of Marfa, City of Presidio, Brewster County, City of County, and Jeff Davis County. Marcy helped me put this together.
Thanks, Mark. Yeah. She's online.
We just took some of the top positions only because when you look at every position within every city and county, there's some significant difference between a county and a city. And then how they're classified. So we kind of looked at street road workers, utility workers, law enforcement officers, dispatch, customer service, we kind of group that with pretty much anything related to being with the public, court clerk, administrative assistants, and receptionist / secretary. So the first column is Alpine. We start probably with the majority at 90% of our employees at 13. And then law enforcement starts at 8. The administrative position is the only one that really has a little bit of flexibility, because we have like the executive assistant high rate. So then you look at the city of Marfa. So pretty much everyone starts at, well, actually, she said everyone starts. Law enforcement is $16 to $18 an hour based on experience. They don't have any dispatchers, they actually contract that out. Every other position is 15. And they do have the availability or incentives for merit raises, license, benchmark. City of Presidio, this one is the on the lower scale. The last time they had an evaluation on their pay was in 2017. It is a 30-step, 30.5 steps that you move up. They start off at 11.49. And you'll notice that their police officers start off at 14.24. But those are steps. So if they're starting off at 13, they also have the ability to move up based on their like. So it's not necessarily that they start off with. There's all the little tax steps that they. Brewster County just changed their pay scale in January of this year. It's a 13th year covering 24 years of service. And it has a 2% increase per. So, but 2% every time. They start all of their employees, not all, they start most of them at $15 an hour. Their police officers start off at dispatchers start off at 14.5. Their clerks, these would be more in your like 15.25. I'm sorry, court clerks at 18.11, and their assistants start off anywhere between 15.25. Presidio County, the one thing that they mentioned is that new staff can receive up to 6% above the minimum for appropriate education. So the position may start off at 14 or 15 an hour. They can get a 6% increase off the bat if they have certain qualities. Their law enforcement is $1 an hour. Their dispatchers are 16. Customer service clerks are at 15. Court clerk is at 15. Administrative assistants are anywhere from 15. Jeff Davis County, we think that there really isn't a pay scale because they're a much smaller number of employees. But the county treasurer did indicate that everyone.
So it's one of the. See that then towards the end of July.
Probably.
But you're gonna have two elements associated with
Yes.
it, who will allow you to create that after we have the discussion about it.
Yes, that's the way.
It's more than a handbook. In my mind, we need a strategy. Document we can review regularly about market size, what our approach is, how we're gonna work that. It does two things. It helps us, the council helps you from the administration standpoint, helps our employees understand where they are. Right now, I dare say, you ask an employee, yeah, it's 13.50 an hour, that's where I start, that's the whole strategy. And that doesn't help.
So it was a bit surprising because I know when we talked about looking at other cities, we tend to look outside of our region. But it is refreshing to know that we are moving the same direction as. So it's time coming. Like I said, the last time this was done was in 18. We probably should have put something in place then that allowed for the review and the continuous movement of it. Jeff Davis was real clear on that they want to stay ahead of the federal. They don't want to have to compete. But they probably don't have a minimum. What is the federal minimum wage right
$7.20.
now? And
Next
Marcy,
year.
can you hear me?
Like $3.
She is, but I don't think she can talk.
I know that she spoke directly with them and I think they were trying to compete, but not the federal minimum wage, $7.25. I think it was another level.
I can hear you.
Do you remember? Do you remember that Jeff Davis told you that they were trying to compete with?
They were, I guess they are anticipating federal legislation, raising the minimum to 15. That's what the county treasurer said. They were just trying to stay ahead of that federal mandate so they didn't have to completely freak out when that happened, basically.
A lot of states already put that in.
Quick question on this. At our last council meeting, that you had mentioned that 24 out of 107 positions are unfilled, so about 20% of the positions are unfilled. And it shows what that 15 of those are parks, water, and wastewater. So we know out of these 24 positions that are unfilled, same thing talking about better positions. Those starting positions, are they any positions? We have like, how do we define the benefits package so we can actually fill in for both positions?
So the utility director, the finance director, and the park foreman are the three that are at the high end. They're the final position. The rest are all start.
That's where our gap is to start.
We did just hire two new police officers. They'll be doing split duties, but they're licensed, police officers
One of them will be this.
for one. We have,
Dispatcher and
and then we have three interviews three interviews this week. So we're starting to see interest again, getting the applications in. We had tried to structure the application and it's everything updated. When someone applies, we have the position open, we allow people to apply, we close the position, we do all the interviews. And then we hire, and then from that, if we need to, we can repost it. Right now, because Parks is struggling, as well as the street department, as soon as we're getting the applications in, we're processing them, so that we can get people hired. I do know that, the utility department, this year, we budgeted additional, positions. But in light of the restructure, the accountability and the now teamwork that has been put in place, we won't have to budget two of those. They have been able to run off of, it doesn't mean they don't have open positions, they still have two that they would have to fill. But they've been able to restructure themselves that would also allow them to have crews. And then have two crews running at the same time. Having them all work together as a team to do the meter readings was a huge impact on that. They compete with themselves to get it done. So that they can start working in the holes and everything else that goes on. Getting the necessary equipment, we've already started that process of two crews can run it.
Last question I have then. So, but yeah, it's what's the, sorry, position. People come to position, you have more applicants for.
You don't go online.
Yeah.
So the utility department got 4 applicants right off the bat for the director position, not a single one of them met. So then do we change our minimum requirement? As an employee who we've asked to get certification for, and that I've worked towards, and then you hire someone who doesn't have that certification, you're gonna create a very hostile. So if we want the position to be a very administrative type position and not have those types of certifications, that's one thing. But currently, the way it's been structured is the utility director is in the field, has the knowledge, they're not doing the book work. They're in there showing them, okay, that's not the right size plant, this is how you get your OD readings, this is how you, they actually have that knowledge. 2 of them were fresh out of college and they had their public. Excited they applied, but no background.
I need a restroom break. Y'all want to keep going? Does everybody want to take a break?
You guys want to take a break or keep going? We're an hour in, so let's just take a quick break.
I don't know.
I just.
Yes. I meant to talk to
Great. I would, it's better to let us know this.
I will do that. Thank you. I appreciate everything you do up there, too. That's not a good thing. It's good for y'all.
Yeah, maybe they try to hand them out, but then if somebody handed it to the kid, right? God, I agree with, but I did too. But I like the troubles on the back.
Okay, are we ready?
Okay, the big one was good.
Okay, so I apologize. I knew it was, what I just handed out to those of you in the public and to the council, this is every current position that is been budgeted. It provides the position title, if it's filled or vacant, and then the current pay rate as of Friday when we did payroll. I say as of Friday when we did payroll because there's still possibilities for people pay to change in regards to merit raises, promotions, those are the two big ones. So those could change in here. I do understand, just so the public understands where I'm coming from. The employee information is public. Anyone can ask what an employee is making. I specifically chose not to put the individual employee's names. It is by position, but if anyone wanted to come and ask. It's really easy to know who's making what because we don't have one chief of police. We don't have one city manager. I also want to point out that the vacant positions are left blank for their starting pay. Yes, they are typically $13.50, but on occasion, we do hire an employee who has specific certifications that we do provide them the additional pay. So I didn't want to leave it open with $13.50 when in reality it could be different. So these are currently all of the departments and all of the employees that we currently have. You'll see all of the open and vacant positions. Yes, we do have 22 vacant positions, but I do want to say one is not funded by the city. This is a grant funded position. So this isn't money coming out of our pockets. It is a reimbursable grant with HIDA. So I do include those staff in here and I do include those employees in here as well, but those are completely funded by the federal government. So they are Alpine police officers. They do submit Alpine timesheets. They are under the supervision of Daryl Lasoya. We just never.
Okay, so I also have a question when it says vacant. Are these positions that we need to fill or are they positions that we would love to have one day?
So these are all budgeted positions that we need to fill. So the comment I made earlier about the water department is this budget process, we added additional positions because the department was very short staffed. But in light of the restructuring and the changing of how that department is managed, they're comfortable with replacing the individuals who have left and not adding a whole new group. They've worked really well under Andrew Devaney's supervision to build a team. So instead of working against each other, they're working with.
So is it a position maybe that we would want to take away?
Yeah.
Not shown.
So for the next budget process, we would need.
What about summer hires?
So this is a unique thing. So seasonal employees are specifically right now the pool. And we hire as many that will apply. How many do you have? We started off with at least 18. One dropped out of the certification program. I think we have another one that left.
Yeah, I heard all about that on Facebook.
So what are the wages given?
So the salaries for the lifeguards are unique. The council did approve those. They start off at I believe $9.25, $9.50, and then they work up as they work. So the first year is one rate, the second year is another rate, and the third year is another rate. And then we have a pool manager, but the city also pays for their certification. We currently do have another, we have him listed as seasonal part-time. Have an employee that has come back multiple summers to help the utility department. This year I made the executive decision that if he really just wanted a summer job, he would be honored to work in our parks department. Because the utility department has structured themselves, that they're starting to manage their workload better. And the parks definitely need help during the summer. He just wanted a job. And so we do have a a part-time worker in the first term.
That program we used to use high school kids, that's no longer available.
I'm not quite sure how that works. I know we've reached out in the past to the Texas workforce in regards to getting high school interns. They pay them, they manage them, and everything, they show up. We never got into that.
they have to work.
On hard. I don't know if it's that. So this year, I had the opportunity to work that. That is an option. We did put out to Sol Ross. I'm calling them project positions. Hiring college students specifically to complete a project. Specifically right now, the project that I'd like to see us move forward with is the lead and copper. And we have the Excel spreadsheet now from TCU. It's literally just getting them in there and putting it in. I'm trying to get Vince Gray Canadian to let them use his intern while he's out of town, because he is an Excel person. So it's just putting that down. But we have reached out to Sol Ross and said, hey, if someone just needs a part-time job, basically, it's project-based, they would come in, work back with them. We did have individual make a recommendation about trying to work with the high school to get college credit. So they can work for the city and they get college credit at the same time. So that's a program we're gonna look at if possible. They would have to be registered with the college.
Right.
So one quick question on public works streets. I see that we have missing some of the higher positions. So we got work 1, 2, and 3. So about
Yes, we do. We have job descriptions for all of them that need to be updated. They are the generic version for 2000.
the next question is going to be, how do you turn a work 1 into a work 2? That based off licensing.
So it's not just licensing, it's responsibilities, it's showing effort. We don't have, and this is why I'm supporting the whole movement and direction classification, how can they move up structure? There's not that in place very well.
So it's Katie Williams you reached out to regarding like the summer work.
She's one of them that will work on it.
Okay. I think the way Kaylin was able to get credit was from the college side. They would have to check with whatever college.
So we do have the internship program and it runs 24/7. That's what's always listed on our site. It's just, I'm getting the word better out there. I know Marcy has reached out, I believe you have reached out several times. Devon, Austin,
I've reached out to the Boston.
Austin,
Public.
trying
She
to,
hasn't, I haven't reached out.
and Marcy has done that recently, so they may have got this.
Right, and, I'm sorry, and the students may not even be aware of it, because when she was doing her internship last year, she didn't realize that she get college credit for it. So if we kind of put that out there that you might be able to get college credit, check with your school, maybe that'll entice some.
Are not part of the internship, but have that organizational benefits that.
As far as like volunteer work. So we, yeah, we try to take on as many volunteers as we can, but we still have to be careful with the background check, make sure that they can fill those spots.
Just curious, what's the full-time split in wastewater? How is that done between the admin and the director? So,
It's 50-50. So because those positions serve both departments, from a director and a secretary type work, so it's split, so it's 40 hours, 40 hours.
got it.
And we currently have one other employee on that status as well, and that's Alan DeVille. 50% of her salary comes out of the general fund and her code enforcement, 50% comes out of the department. And then we also split, in her case, the benefits as well, her insurance and all of that. In the utility side, because it's split within the same fund. So these are all the positions. I kind of wanted to give you guys an idea of where our employees came from. So that you could see, we're anywhere from 1350, all the way to my salary. So we would all love to count. Satisfied.
So everybody that's under 15, we approve that.
The vote for the vote. Did you have?
Well, I don't know why, I haven't read.
Like,
I know.
great, like, it made changes, I'm not happy with it. And the reason why I say that, Chris, is when you look at our employee, you look at where we're at, you look at where we're going. And you look at what we literally just talked about today. Not being able to afford housing. Not having housing.
They're not having.
It's years of service and it's the promotions that have been given to them. I'm gonna tell you right now, I literally just told Daryl Lozoya that I.
That's what they're looking, when you compare his to some of the others, I mean.
And I will be asking. So he's technically my second in command, so if he knows when I'm not here, when I call, he calls me.
He's one that posts stuff on the website of the city.
Different
has people.
My
People.
You missed it,
I
Daryl.
miss it. I miss.
I just said,
We're
so,
thinking 150.
no, so I said, so we're taking you down to 1350.
Oh.
And now I'm hosting for a new job.
We had it under $15. Big clip.
And then add all the bacon.
I didn't know, I didn't know.
When I was looking at it, it's from $13.50 to $15, it's about 11%. So if you do the compression, maybe you can do.
No,
Or at
it's
least
not that. It's the median between the high and the low and the classification. And the classification, I think. I actually have that down here, the demographic. And this is one reason why this meeting is important, is to understand what information is needed, and kind of give the public the understanding is. We are kind of within the market rates, but there are several who've already taken that leap. We lose them to Presidio, I know that.
And in my experience, you don't want to share the state with employees, so they understand the strategy of the market space. You do that, brings temperatures down, they say, okay, now I understand that, pay the market, unfair, now I gotta make my decision. It just takes the energy out. That's it.
And the other side of this, that I do have for everyone. So one thing that, I don't know, you know, where to look at. So this one I didn't print out, but I wanted to bring this to everyone's attention. I keep this for fun, to be honest. So it's an employee cost calculation. So when we look at how much an employee actually costs from 1350 to 15 and what that difference is. This does fluctuate based on our retirement, our health insurance, our unemployment rates. Those are all calculated in this as well. But then if we change our paid leave benefits, that also is calculated in this. So I wanted to every year to present this to all the employees. Say, hey, this is what your real value. So as we move into this process and putting in structure, putting in pay scales and that accountability and that growth plan, and the understanding is we're supporting you to support yourself. This would be another key factor.
They don't understand that it costs the city.
It does. And so at 1350, it's 22.23, and then at 15, it comes out to 24. That's $2.
And you're gonna get a lot of feedback too about why do I have benefit. To the particular process. Reviews that you're gonna get. Those-
One, I know, Jennifer, I'm bringing you up, I do apologize. Jennifer does have issues sometimes trying to keep her employees because they all want to better themselves. So she currently has an employee, and I may have mentioned this to you guys before, who's looking to buy a house and he wants to invest in Alpine, he wants to settle down in Alpine, but he can't afford it. there's a wealth of information that we don't do well providing our employees, including USDA has a new homeowner buying program. I'm sorry, but you know, yes, I may love numbers and budgeting, but having this simple finance budgeting 101 classes so people understand really where their money is and how they, to help them and bringing that to our employees. And my key focus is I don't want to mandate them, you have to do this. I want them to know that we're actively encouraging them to better themselves here are the resources. So instead of saying, well, you don't help us, you don't do this, say, hey, look, we have all these resources available for you. But that's also developing an HR department. One person can do it. So right now, Becky manages mostly the onboarding, the hiring, and the termination. I'm in it to explain the insurance side, but I'm managing the side and in the paperwork and understanding all of that. And it's splitting these responsibilities and building a team that can support our.
Doing that in addition to the finance department.
I want our employees to have insurance. I want them to know. I had a mandatory meeting with all of our staff saying, hey, you guys have insurance, use it. And we pay for 50% of the defense coverage. That's important for people to understand that that's an expensive for the city. But we want you to take your child to the dentist, to get glasses, to the, you know, so these are all things that are taken into consideration in this year to prepare.
Maybe, well, not all employees have. Like I say, maybe an email to everybody to say, hey, do you know about this USDA?
Every email ends with, make sure you let your coworkers know. Or Daryl and Andrew and even Jennifer's like, I send it to you, you've got to tell them.
I print it out and I put it, I mean, it yeah.
And it's restructuring this table, and
Yeah.
going back to having the group meetings and appreciation, and getting them all out.
And battery's running low.
Good. Just a.
It's not such.
I'm gonna wave my hand back here. Just a suggestion for budgeting 101. If you wanted to do that for employees, I know the Texas Society of CPAs will put something like that on. And there happens to be a member in the room.
I just heard someone volunteer that.
But it will be budgeting 101. It's not gonna be, you know, what is the city offering?
No,
It's
no, no,
not-
it's
Yeah.
just simple classes for them to know, you know, this is how much I bring, if I bring in 1,500 a month, but I'm saying 1,600 a month.
I got a
Because-
problem. Yeah.
Because you don't go to school because of the state
No.
test.
Which is where
When
it's
I was in
busy.
school, we had stuff like that.
Yes, ma'am.
It's realistic, real life stuff.
And I would go out to the
Yeah.
schools and actually get that exact thing, you know, you wanna live in an apartment, you wanna have a car. And you can't work at McDonald's and do that, you're gonna have to decide what you wanna do. Now, the employees are a little more savvy than that, I know. But there are online things too, quite a bit of online. They are,
And you taught that stuff. I was taking, I didn't like it, but I never stuck with the STAR test. So they're not taught, I remember.
You just volunteered.
I don't know how to be.
You just volunteered.
Right.
I'll get some stuff on the website. So my parents.
Yeah, 'cause-
Right. I'll do like.
All right. It's-
and it won't be Subway.
But writing it down.
That was IT, as I was speaking for so.
Okay. Can we get back on track? Okay, so now you have all that information. So the second part. That's what those is.
Somebody.
Can you get plugged in?
No, it was the screen share had stopped.
Oh.
So the next one, the second part of the strategic plan and the thing that was brought up was the employees. So once again, Marcy assisted with taking all of the stuff from the brain from the meetings and everything, and putting it into goals, objectives, and actionable items. So the first one is to create and implement an environment that encourages all employees, personnel growth, and job satisfaction. That's everything we've literally talked about tonight. It's working with council to create and adopt the core values this is, I want to be able to hire someone and say, this is what our values are. And this is the direction we're going. It's been a big push actually across the country, to hire the people who value the same things you do. Our mission statement is to provide quality services to our residents. But we don't define what quality is. And so having some additional stuff in here specifically like core values is important.
What would be one of your core values?
Good question. Judy gave me a whole list.
Because
of
I
them.
mean, everybody's got core values, but they may differ.
Integrity.
That's what I was gonna say.
So integrity is a big one, but
Yes, it
it's
is.
putting that in writing and then the council supporting, and then when people get hired, they say, hey, that's my core value. I want to work where people respect the same
I
thing.
agree. I would want to do
So you're gonna apply?
it. Again, you're high.
Yes, Karen.
So the second one is to reframe the employee handbook and include the core values and the diet and disciplinary actions. To create an annual practice of rewarding employees for going on and beyond these expectations. So this year, was the first year for our employee annual awards banquet. We did issue awards. There was a city manager employee of the year. And every director had an employee of the year award as well. And then we recognized every single employee with their years of service. It was open to them and their families. It was after hours to allow them to enjoy their time, the weekend. I think we finally left this. I think that's that one I kicked you all
You
out.
used to kick this out, yeah.
They were like, it's time to go to bed.
But it was exciting. We took the time, you know, we had plaques made and we recognized them, we called them up there, and I made sure to highlight every single employee and the great job they do for our city. And that's what they took away. It wasn't I had to go because I may or may not get something. Everyone was recognized in one form or another. I want this program to grow. We implemented recognizing all of the national level, mentioned that one before y'all, so that everyone gets recognized. We started to do more within the departments. I know that Karen, because she's here, I'm gonna, give her a big thanks because she's treating the utility department to lunch. The public is starting to recognize them. I think that's important. But to put it actually in a writing form, that we have to basically follow, hold us accountable to recognize our own employees. You repeat what you said about Karen. She's treating the utility department to lunch.
Thank you. Welcome. It's, I mean, I saw that picture, shoulder deep in the water. And as much as I'd love to be in the water and amok with them, I can't do that. But I can give them lunch. And that was just a small token of my appreciation. You're welcome.
Asking her.
Yeah. we'll be-
Please. Send them to Megan so she can.
So what's the timing for this?
So this is actually gonna be part of, and we're working out on the Gantt chart. This one is gonna be managed all through next fiscal year. Because we can only do certain sections at a time.
Sure.
I don't want, and just so you understand why it's taking a little bit longer, this should have been done, the employee handbook, everything should have been updated. But I don't want to piecemeal it. I don't want to give you this section first and this section, this section first. I want to do what we've done pretty much every time, is present a full new handbook, a full new set of values. So that when you sit down and you look at it, you're approving the whole thing and not, well, didn't we approve this chapter? Did you change the number? And it becomes.
So you said next fiscal year, so when should we expect this?
You should expect to see probably the first draft, and I know Marcy's working on the event, but probably in the January, March.
I'm just- You know me, I'm just that when, we have lots of work to do. So you got.
Surprise, that'll be at Christmas time. I'm feeling
Look at the
stressed
grass.
with how much you have to do.
It's not,
Marcy's helping you and who else?
it's not just me doing it, and you guys have to understand, I've actually been working on this since May of 24.
Okay, because I know I keep getting high heart rate alert because I'm sitting here thinking.
I took the opportunity to start researching to make huge changes in the city because I'd like it really to be when I retire that people, it's the team that we've always wanted. It's the buildup of our community, it's the foundation, everyone talks positive for the most part about the city. So I've actually been pulling research, visiting with other city managers, HR companies. Sherm and I have become friends with the society. Human Resource Center. There's just a wealth of information, so I selected, I found the things that I think are important for us.
So you're already kind of halfway?
But the budget came out, so it kind of goes.
Right.
So for 2 summers, it goes back.
I'm not volunteering for anything else. But, the handbook generators, automated handbook generators have come a long way. I just did one for the Sunshine House. I was pleasantly surprised. It gives you the basics.
I paid for a membership with Mineral because we were provided the basics, but I paid for the additional side of it so that
Good, because I was so impressed that happens now. So I poured through enough handbooks that I'm like,
I was just excited because the basics gave me the federal and state requirements.
yeah,
And then what you can do on the advanced side that I paid for was they kind of, you put your old policy and then it will go in and redline what, oh, that's questionable.
yeah.
And then as I put stuff in, it just automatically. Works. So I have the table of contents, so it kind of just plugs it for. Now, I'm not gonna put fancy pictures and things like that in it. It really is just.
It's okay.
Because like this, when I was in a small town office, a lot of times they have city council involved with this. Is it something to do entirely in-house or third party?
We're gonna start off entirely in-house. And then as we grow and develop, we want it to be a bigger, better, more meaningful, look at other companies. There are platforms for all this that are like super exciting. And I don't have 25 grand.
Just pull it out of your pocket.
When I win the lottery,
No,
I'm gonna.
I'll pave the streets when I win the lottery. I know the street.
Yeah. What about the wastewater?
I'll fix that too. Yeah, because I'm going for big money.
The second objective was to create a structure of upward mobility. We have talked about this job description, so it's the same thing. And the last one is the comprehensive active employee retirement. The reason why we put these down on paper is because I want something that I can say when you get hired here. Not me telling you, oh, you have benefits, something that they can take home. We know when you hand an employee an employee handbook, they never open it until they're like, oh, I wonder if that even, and then they sign for it. They all have to sign for it. They have to acknowledge they have. So those are the
Tell them there'll be a test.
no, those are the current strategies.
You said we were gonna have it, not late.
Not, so based on just the conversation we had, you guys are okay with the annual policy, which will be up for approval at the next meeting. We're looking at 2 structures, the cost of living across the board and that narrows it down for me. Other items that we've discussed tonight to look into the retirement, fully see how it would impact our city. Else that there's not talk about, anything from the public that you're concerned with. I asked the directors here, I mentioned at the beginning, I really want them to really, if they want to, kind of tell you where they're at in their position and how important it is. Ways. Hinting that they can
I'm working, I'm sorry.
Last week, Matt's got a couple of balloons, deal me like that. Remember what we got last year of what they want? Pictures. It did have pictures.
So the capital improvement, we did just a summary. There was some changes and additions that needed to be made, which I've been working on, to include some of the projects that weren't in the original CIP. And then you'll have a draft with all the pictures. So they have done that. This year, my focus was their top 3 priorities, things that they wanted to see. I know for Daryl, my request to him was community involvement. I think it's important that the face of our is one that the community recognizes, enjoys, and I don't want the stigma of the football. So he has actively been working towards that, and every year
But he's done that.
increases and he increases it every year. Building services, both of what they're requesting priority wise is a lot of just technology. Even the current, level. Utilities are looking at a structure there specifically with, funding, how we're gonna move forward with the bigger projects, the lead copper, things like that. Future discussion on that. Animal control would like to definitely do some improvements within their building. Airport wants it all.
Hey,
Gotta get it off.
He's gonna leave you alone.
Randy, is looking at, phasing, phase one of smart meters so that it cuts back on. They have that, so they've all put that
So that would
together.
take my meter to be smaller.
It would, yes. But so they've all done that part of it, so as part of the expense side. So you can see Heather has done hers. Gio has done hers. It's just being structured different. We still did the line by line, what they're wanting, how they want to increase, explanations of all that. But for me, it was, I understand you want to move money up and down because you look at what you've been spending. And then that's the normal way. I spent more this year, I'll spend more next year. But I wanted our expenses to be easily tied back to a project, so that when Karen comes in and says, when is the PPA road gonna be paved? I can sit there and say, okay, this is a priority project, it's on the list and it's scheduled.
But you know I will.
So
We
it's
expect you to.
developing that accountability on both sides. The public has to trust us, to building that trust and where the money's going. But at the same time, it's me holding the departments accountable for the projects that we did. And then over time, we just build it up. into bigger. Keyword.
You've been active. I know, I thought wind turbines, I decided we needed wind turbines. I thought that's our picture. Why do we have these sitting around there? Why do we have wind?
No kidding.
No kidding, there you go, thank you, Karen. So.
What about by the recycling center?
Yes.
And they don't make noise.
Oh, wait, I don't look at land.
They don't make noise. They don't kill cows. Okay.
Birds that are down.
Well, skyscrapers kill more birds.
Uh-oh.
They don't. Can't close.
But
Can't close financial. Cost for solving everything.
Yes.
They are only working to do so.
So that part of the budget would include the full maintenance section with the.
They're now in the red book.
So we've all been actively working on the budget, basically since October. And all the departments understand, been all on board with wanting to move forward. I think for them, it's actually seeing things get. And it's nice, it's nice to know I can mark that off my list. So when, people from the public say, hey, when are you gonna get this fixed? Oh, well, that's right here, and it's on the schedule. And then it's not.
We can have that online.
It's always on, budgets are always on.
Well, I mean, where we're checking, so,
We're trying to go that direction, especially with the strategic plan. That's where, software and dashboards that can do that, where it's just a simple little, we're trying to develop it.
kind of like we do for our construction.
Yes, but then it's also making sure someone's constantly updated. That's where we fall on, yeah. I want them at the pool to make sure the lifeguards are there, but then they need to be at the yard to make sure that project's getting completed, and then.
You're gonna do anything.
Yeah, council is just a director to the audit reports. And, if you ask me anything concerning the animal, stuff happening now, is there anything the directors of those positions want the council to know that you get budgeted as far as the task that will be advised over to the advisory board?
That's what the priorities. So that's what they want to see happen this year.
That's the opposite.
That's what's actually gonna go in the budget. It may be an item in the SIP, but it may not, but it's gonna be in the, not all of those are in place. So yeah, so they provided their top three projects. So instead of doing the ups and downs with the line items, they're gonna have specific projects. So you'll see that line item project. So as we go through the year, we're up, so that's for 50%.
So the step from last year, it's about parks, signage, right, that parks. That we put in the budget, so that all the work that parks board has actually done last year concerning signage. That project was, will be funds there to.
That is the plan.
Because there'll be more signage each
Well,
time.
A good question is, are there going to be new goals that are going to be handed down to the advisory boards after the new year?
So at the beginning of the fiscal year, the council should come back and either continue with what you have or assign you. So ones that are completed, they would add to it. So this would be an annual thing given to the board.
Okay, great.
You don't get it just.
I know. Oh.
Darn it.
Look at that, we got it, it's our agenda, it's all set, we know what we're gonna do.
The more I come, the more I understand. So, thank you.
If you're ever bored, you can come sit in my office and.
We do, but we get off topic and.
This needs to down on the brain, don't
Make a solution so everyone can put it in the drink.
So I've gathered a lot of information, further prepared for this budget. Do note that the budget is prepared in Excel. So please be very open to when we make changes and how we make them. Formulas all have to be moved and it's all manually done. I am excited to make all the changes. They take the budget.
See like that, Gerald?
Next meeting is next.
It's on red. I'm hoping that you will have it Saturday. We work 24/7. It's just finalizing all of them. They will be reported.
At least it's been 24 hours.
And that, just so you guys know, the revenue, it will have the initial spreadsheet with all of the departments and then the interest in all of those accounts. And then there will be the update on the quarterly for the investments and our debt. And then I believe if I haven't, I will send you the draft of the first. I can print it for you. I email it and then if you need to print it, it's
I didn't get it today. Because I was like, go print that for me. Probably, I'll be able to catch Bob's going.
but it will also have the draft created by you. So, and I can tell you right now that from what I understand with the appraisal district, they have a much larger group of people who have filed.
I'm surprised.
To argue.
10 acres of unimproved land, 25,000. Like this.
I saw one that was, like $750,
Down south, they're trying to sell 5-acre plots for 12,000.
but that price value is,
So if there's no, unless someone else wants to make a comment,
The one on expenses is gonna be that Saturday meeting.
it's gonna be the 24th.
Comment. Thank you. Megan. So,
Yeah, I want to second that. I know here I don't speak too much, but thank y'all for doing what y'all do, what we do. I know y'all see a lot, but we do with Daryl and everybody. We're making changes. It's my personal opinion, because I've seen in other cities, road plans. and it takes time, but I like the road plan. Like how we talk about housing, stuff like that, small, we're forgotten West Texas per se. Compared to where I'm from. I think it'd be good. It's grueling. It's been good. Yeah.
Thank you, because see, I got 2 calls today on something you didn't. Really, and Daryl, you know, you're always going to.
I
You
wanna
can say,
run my
we sit up here,
reputation.
y'all are the ones out in the trench. You
Yeah.
know, we're sitting up here, you see us twice a month, you know,
And you
that's
know,
what
that's
y'all
the-
do.
going about with the retention form, you know, with our guys, seeing over burnout. You know, she's doing that. They were, that,
It goes along.
it does. So, make changes and I really do appreciate it.
Yeah, everything in today's meeting, as far as what y'all up there, it's all positive.
value, guys, for all you do. Thank God. I play dominoes while you were doing more. Probably in the back of their neck. I like to brush it off.
You do that or what? What's time of year? Good.
He caught me yesterday with a sticker. So one box. You know, I know it wasn't. It was all Robert.
In that case, everyone's good. I mean, this is the first day before 5. Let's do it.
It's 5:30 meeting.
Yeah.